Okay, hello guys. I want to do a quick ride along video for this week's draft, which is a really easy draft. And it's gonna be an easy 100. You just gotta do a couple of things. One is write a quick little blurb paragraph explaining what you're choosing to do, interviews or observations, and why, as well as who you're choosing to interview, who are they and why them, and include some tables to include your interview questions or your observation procedures, and prepare to include your interview answers or your observation notes. So we're just preparing the essay to take this. Now, if you've already completed your interviews and observations, you could add the information in and start dealing with it. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. But is the expectation to add your interview answers in there and start analyzing it? No, for this draft, you don't have to do that. You're more than welcome to. It'll get you ahead, but you do not have to do that. All you have to do, one little paragraph on top explaining what you're choosing to do and why, who you're choosing to interview or observe and why, and then set up the tables to include your interview questions and your observation procedures, and prepare to put in the answers that you'll be getting. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you guys. So you'll see here that I have I'm just having my stuff prepared. The questions that I've created with the AI, there's mine and the AIs. I also have some observation plans, partial that comes from the AI and the other parts that come from me. So I'm setting all this stuff up. I have my essay ready to start adding. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my older essay, the one where I discussed my sources, and prepare it to take in the information that we need. And so you'll see here at the top, I decided I want to wait to write my introduction. And so I have a little note there saying I'm going to do my introduction later because I don't really know what I'm even introducing yet until I get to the ends. I'm still discovering stuff, so I'm not really going to focus too much on the introduction. I like creating like subheadings for my stuff. So like this is like a quick and easy subheading for my sources, because that's what, when I talk about my secondary sources, that's what it's about. I also create like a subheading for my interviews, but I might change it when I'm done my interviews and analyzing all of that information. Maybe I discover something cooler than just this, and I might change it. But I'm going to prepare now to just add in, right after the last paragraph of my secondary sources, I'm going to add in my next stuff. So the next thing you got to do, all you got to do is write a little blurb about who you'll be researching, or what you're doing and why. So the first thing I want to do is what and why. I'll say I've chosen to do 2 interviews for my primary research. Well, that's a bit on the nose. Maybe I want to say, like, there's nothing wrong starting like that, but I like to start not so obvious, I guess. I've chosen to complete 2 interviews with 2 nursing professionals or professors at UTRGV. Now I've chosen to do 2 interviews. I'll say I've chosen to do interviews because I want to get very detailed and specific information, but I also want to hear personal experiences. And I think interviews will allow me to ask the right follow-up questions to obtain that information. Now I'll talk a little bit about the people I'm choosing to interview. So I've chosen to interview, well, yeah, I've chosen to interview 2 nursing professors at UTRGV, UTRGV. And now I went ahead and I pulled up the website for the School of Nursing, because this is where I can find that quick information. So if I go to About Us, I'll see that, oh, there's the faculty information. So I'm excited. So I contacted Miss Aurelia Herrera. I'm going to click on her information. And so she's a clinical assistant professor. So that's how I'm going to introduce her. If I have more information about her, then I would give more information. I want to make sure I get her name just right. So I'm going to go ahead and copy paste it in. I interviewed Mrs. So I want to make sure I get the pronunciation spelling right. And Mr. Oh shoot. Let me go back. Where is he? Right down here. Click on that. I'm going to go ahead. Go return. Paste without formatting. Oh, I don't need all of this bolded. They are both clinical associate professors. I believe he's a clinical associate professor. I think she is too. Yeah, they're both clinical. He's an associate and she's an assistant. Okay, sorry about that. So I'll go ahead and mention that in because I want to talk about them. Who are these people? So actually I made a mistake there. So Mrs. Herrera Erdem is a clinical assistant professor. Sorry about that. Clinical assistant professor in the nursing program at UTRGV. And Mr. Garcia is a clinical associate professor in the nursing program at UTRGV. I chose these 2 professors because I wanted to hear from people who teach at the college level about what they have experienced and seen, and even what they teach as effective reading strategies for nursing students. So here's my nice little blurb, right? It has, and we look at it like, wow, it really sets up my interviews, right? So before I even get into them, this is preparing my readers, whoever my audience is, to understand what I'm going to be doing next. I'm going to be moving from talking about sources to talking about my interviews. And so I'm kind of like introducing them. Think of this as its own little chapter. So now that I've done this, now all I gotta do is create some tables to take my interviews, or if I was doing an observation, to take my observation procedures. I'll show you both interview and observation procedure. So I'm going to create a table. And we can do this in different ways. It depends on how nice and pretty you want it to look, but we definitely want to create tables. And the reason we want to create a table for our interview or observation is we want to present it in a very clear and readable way. Because interviews are just, question, answer. If we just do that in a paragraph, it's very hard to read. And then if we just do it like line by line, well, then it takes up too much space on the paper, and it's very disorganized and we want to present it. Your research, your primary research, the information you get from it, that's your data, and you want to present it. And most data is presented visually, even when it's qualitative. That means even when it's very descriptive, like an interview or an observation, we can still present it in tables or charts or graphs to make it readable and accessible to our readers. That's what we're always trying to do, making sure that we're making the information easy to read for our readers. That's why when you read a lot of research papers, as soon as they get to their own research, they start presenting it in tables and charts and graphs. They want to make the extensive information or data accessible to the reader. So let me go back. How many questions do I have in my, oh, I didn't even number my questions. Oh my goodness, I'm not very smart. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with 7, 8. So 8 questions, including my follow-ups. So I'm going to go ahead and come back over here. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a table for 8 questions. I might actually add a little bit more to that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm going to add 9 because I want to do something kind of nice on the top here. You don't have to do this. I just like things to look good. I like things to look pretty, and I almost think about like, how's my reader going to be looking at this? I'm going to merge my column. And so just show you what I did here, right? If you're on Pages on a Mac, there should be an option to create a table. If you're on a Word document, for example, here's Word, or if you're on Google Drive, you should be able to go to Insert. So if you look at the very top, you'll see Insert and then Table, and then you'll be able to choose your rows and your columns, just like here on Google Drive. If I go to Insert and Table, I can choose how many rows and how many columns I want this table to be. I'm going for 2 columns. So I'm going to put my interview questions that I created over here. I'm going to put the answers over here once I get them. And I'm going to take this top row, and I think I'm going to merge it because I like to put the picture of the person that I'm doing the interview with. And for this, I'm just going to go back to UTRGV. I'm going to take, I know I'm being a little evil here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save her image. So I think I'm going to use her image. I'm going to save it. I'm also going to save his image. And I'll give credit to UTRGV for the image. I'm going to go back, and I would like to put insert image from my computer. And so I'm going to put, because I kind of like being able to share the picture of who I'm interviewing. It doesn't have to be super big or anything like that. I'll make it a little bit smaller. And then I'll put her name, Mrs. Aurelia Herrera Erdem. Kind of like, it just looks nice to me. Let's see, how do I want this to show up? Well, I think I can mess with like image. Oh, there it is. I want it to be not necessarily like that. So I can change like how the image is orientated. I like this, but I don't want it to be like, let's see if I can. Okay, that's better. And then I'm gonna put my interview questions here. See if I can. Oh, okay. I can mess. I'm just messing with how the image is presented, guys. So yeah. Okay, I like that a little bit more. For me, I want things looking pretty, and that's just me as a writer. I like things looking nice and organized and whatnot. I also like to introduce tables. Never assume that your audience knows what's going on. You always want to guide them. So I like to say, below, you'll find my interview with Mrs. Aurelia Erdem. And then I can put the questions in here. I have to come in here and put them in one by one. So I'll go ahead and do that. I'll go, what's going on here? I think it's because, yeah, okay. So that's question number 1. Make it look all nice and neat. And I'm going to put in my follow-up question. In follow-up. And then and why. I didn't talk about this earlier, but I will mention sometimes we do want to be transparent about the fact that we used AI to help us generate questions. I can think about a place where maybe I might include that, I might not. I could see myself including it. The right questions within that information. I might say I used AI to help me generate 4 questions in my interview. I used the AI first to help me understand how to phrase the questions and how to focus the questions. Once I did that, I created 2 follow-up questions and 2 of my own questions to include in the interviews. Just being open and transparent with my audience. I could identify the AI questions if I wanted to. I don't necessarily have to, just explaining like my process. And it's good. I always think it's good to be transparent and honest. That way people know what's going on. Here's another one. This one's an AI question. I'm going to go ahead and put it here, number 2. Let me make this bold. This is like my follow-up question for 1. Follow-up Q1. 3. Let's go back. Oh, I have a follow-up. Oops. Okay, let me put in the follow-up first. Follow-up question 2 is, can you share your own experiences with this? And then my next question would be question number 3. And then question number 4. And I'm just kind of putting in the questions that I've already created in here. 5. Let me go to question number 5. Number 5 is my created question. And number 6 is this last one right here. And so now I've prepared it to take my questions, and I could do the same, another table to include for the next person. So I might go ahead and, since I already have it, I'm gonna copy it, but then just change the names because it's like, I don't want to go through the same procedure all over again. So I'm gonna go back below. You'll find my interview with Mr. Garcia. Wait, did I get that name right? I want to make sure I got the name right. Yes, Garcia. Mr. Garcia. Or I guess doctor, right? Because, or no, they're DDS, they're nurses. What's the, okay, I'm gonna wait on that. Mr. Garcia. And now instead of this picture, I'm going to replace the image with a different one from my computer. And instead I'll put Mr. Garcia, Edmundo Garcia. All right. And the questions are the same, so I don't have to redo that. And so that's how I set up my interviews. But what if I have an observation and not interviews? Or maybe I have an observation and an interview. Well, if you have an observation, then instead of saying below you'll find my interview, so below you'll find my observation of whoever you observed of 4 nursing students. You'd have to, introduce them in your paragraph if that's what you're doing. I'm going to remove this. I'm going to remove this table. Can I delete the table? Let me highlight the whole thing. I'm going to do it slightly differently. I'm going to use a table. I'm going to use a table to there's got to be a way to delete the table. Oh yeah, delete table right there. And so I do have observation procedures down here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 procedures. And I want a space to take my notes or explain my notes a bit. So I might have that look a little bit different. So I have 7 procedures. So I'm going to go ahead and include a table with 7 procedures. And maybe include I'll have a table of my procedures. Find my observation plan for observing 4 nursing students. And now I'm just going to copy over my plan. Or my steps. I guess I'll call it step 1. And then copy over everything. Step 1, identify my students that I'll be observing. So I'll write that in there. Step 2. I'll do the next one. And I'm just kind of copying over the plans I did. So like what's in bold, I left from the AI, and then the other stuff is my own ideas or thoughts. So I mostly use the AI to kind of help me structure and plan, but the information about what I was going to do, that came from me. And I could include that up here instead of talking about if I was doing observations, instead of explaining that I got some of my questions from the AI, I might say I use the AI to help me begin to structure and think out what the plan looked like, and then included my own content about who I was going to study and why and what was I looking for. So it basically just helped me figure out what are my first or second steps for this observation. It was a guide. And we're just going to keep going until I got all my steps in there. Step 4. I could even talk about what the AI gave me and what I chose to keep and what I chose not to keep and why. That could also give me more to write about and talk about. It's always good to explain our procedures and our processes so that if someone wanted to recreate our research, they could recreate it. And they know where these ideas are coming from. And, they can start to question them as well. They might say, well, did the AI really give you the best potential questions? And that's a fair question or critique of our research, so but they won't be able to critique us that way if we don't give it to them, and we want them to be able to critique us. That's how we get to even more improved and better research. So never be afraid to talk about the limitations of your research, or even the just being transparent about how you came up with your ideas. There's nothing wrong with being honest and taking accountability for our processes, and nothing will ever be perfect. Perfection comes from the ability to be transparent, open, and honest about how we come to things. So here are my steps. Now, notice I haven't left space for my notes or what I discover. So I think I'll make another table. So I'll say below are my notes from the observation I completed on, and I like to be really clear about when things happen. So I'm going to do my observation tomorrow. So Sunday, February. Never spell February correctly. No, I was going to Sunday 2/26/2023. in the UTRGV library study rooms. Right. And I'll create another table. I don't know how many notes I'm going to take. I'm going to just leave it open for like a lot of notes. And then if I need to get rid of certain rows, well, then I'll get rid of rows. So I might just put like note 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down the line, and then I can talk about them later. So I wanted to show you guys some possible ways of setting this up, and that's all you gotta do, just set it up. I haven't done it, so I don't have any notes to put here, so it's going to be blank when I turn it in, and that's still going to be 100 because I just wanted you to set it up. So I'll make sure to include this model in excuse me, I apologize, in our video today. Once you're done with this video, then you're going to go to Blackboard. You're going to go to Experience 1, Week 6. We are almost there, guys. All of our hard work is coming to like a big precipice. You know, we're heading toward the end. It's super exciting. And you can see all of the hard work that's gone into this. I hope that you guys are proud. Once we're in week 6, we're going to go all the way down until we see the rough draft. And we're just going to go ahead and submit what we got. Rough drafts are going to be, these rough drafts are going to be automatic hundreds. You got them in. I'm going to do a quick look. If you got your blurb and you got, you know, your table set up to take your interviews, that is going to be 100. If you have more, cool. That's also 100. So we're going to go in here and we're going to upload this draft where we just, all we did was wrote a little paragraph about what are we doing, interviews or observations, and why. We can even talk a little bit about how we came up with that interview or observation plan if you wanted to. Transparency is always good. Plus, it gives you a little bit more to talk about. And then who did I choose to interview and why? And then I set up the tables to take the interviews or to take the observation. And that's it. That's all you got to do. I'm going to submit this. I'll save this to my computer. Download. And then once I've saved it to my computer, I'm going to go ahead and upload it to Blackboard. And I'll submit it. And that's all we got to do this weekend. Don't forget the reading homework, of course, in the KWLQ sheet, super easy hundreds. And remember, the KWLQ sheets are to prepare you for the next lesson and also to help you engage in a very easy, quick to do note-taking activity that actually really does help you start to remember and grasp the ideas in the reading. So thank you guys for watching. And if you have any questions, of course, join me in my office hours. I know that they're getting packed as we get closer and closer to the end. But hit me up if you do need a one-on-one with me, and we'll schedule you in for that. Okay, guys, I will see you later.